Welcome friends to Global Trends and Cycles. I'm Marie Sheppel, and today's video looks at the outcome of the diplomatic crisis triggered by Chinese tennis star Peng Shuai's accusation against Zhang Gaoli, a former vice premier of China, that he forced her to have sex with him. Peng's natal Saturn interacts with a configuration in China's natal chart that, when it has been triggered in the past, has resulted in heavy retribution by the Chinese Communist Party. China seems adamant that it will handle this incident in its own secretive way, despite statements from professional organizations in the West that they will withdraw from commercial agreements with China if it does not produce credible proof that Peng is safe, unharmed, and not subjected to coercion, and that a full investigation into the incident has begun. Despite Peng's reappearance on the weekend of November 20th, and her video conference call with Thomas Bach, the president of the International Olympic Committee, the Women's Tennis Association said that the videos fail to, quote, alleviate or address the WTA's concerns about her well-being and her ability to communicate without censorship or coercion. This situation clearly fits the forecast that I gave in my video on Venus retrograde conjunct Pluto against the backdrop of the Saturn-Uranus square. Underlying the psychological manipulation and sexual overtones of the Venus-Pluto conjunction is a standoff between two powerful figures, represented by Saturn, who is the father of the gods and goddesses, and Uranus, who is the father of Saturn. During this Venus retrograde period, many people may find themselves as pawns in a fierce competition between two authoritarian figures in their lives. Here, the two figures locked in a standoff are China and the West, primarily the United States. It is all about power and the misuse of power. And as Venus rules money, and Pluto rules other people's money, the real root of the conflict is all about who gets to be the big dog of global economic power. For Peng Shuai, her awful experience finds her squeezed between the Chinese government and international sports organizations that have lucrative commercial deals in China. For the United States and the West in general, the issue is continuing to have access to the huge Chinese market of 1.5 billion people. Big financial deals are at stake for China also, as well as its international standing. But the CCP is clearly reconsidering whether further integration with the West's financial system is worth giving up their absolute power over the people and resources of China. This 2021 Venus retrograde period is most likely the decisive moment when the CCP's determination to isolate China from the West accelerates with stern fury. But by the same token, it may also be the decisive moment when those in the West decide that having access to China's market carries more risk than reward. The CCP is very sensitive to any popular dissent, especially any coming from the labor force. This is shown by a configuration involving Jupiter and Chiron. Natal Jupiter, 22 degrees 35 minutes Capricorn, is in the 12th house, and natal Chiron, 5 degrees 29 minutes Sagittarius, is in the 10th house. Sagittarius Jupiter rules the 11th house of political parties, which are professional associations, and because there is truly only one political party in China, Jupiter and the 11th house represent the Chinese Communist Party. Jupiter is in close orb of the antecyon of natal Chiron, which is at 24 degrees 31 minutes Capricorn, which means their positions act as if they are in conjunction. The CCP has a deeply ingrained fear of labor revolts due to this natal Jupiter-Chiron conjunction by Antisia. Several points stand out about this configuration. It seems to possess a very dark significance for China, as whenever it is triggered, it results in heavy-handed repression, with a struggle to heal afterwards. It is associated with the policies and actions of the party, and its ultimate effect is to hold back the country as a whole from full expression. Peng's natal Saturn at 5 degrees 52 minutes Sagittarius is conjunct China's natal Chiron, also at 5 degrees Sagittarius. This aspect shows the huge impact that this incident will have on the CCP, and thus on all of China. But what caused this interaction of these charts to be triggered at this time? The positions of transiting Venus, Pluto, and Mars on December 20th, 2021, the day that Venus turns retrograde for Beijing time, triggered China's natal Jupiter-Chiron configuration. And as Venus was beginning to slow down in early November, nearing her retrograde station, the square of transiting Mercury, 24 degrees Libra, to transiting Pluto, 24 degrees Capricorn on November 2nd, the day of Peng's post to the internet of her ordeal, set the ball in motion. Venus goes retrograde at 26 degrees 29 minutes Capricorn, with Pluto less than 1 degree away, also in Capricorn. Thus they are conjunct China's natal Jupiter, and they are on the antecyon of China's natal Chiron. Transiting Mars is at 4 degrees Sagittarius the same day, conjunct both China's natal Chiron and Peng's natal Saturn. This antecyon configuration of transiting Venus, Pluto, and Mars acts like a triple conjunction of these planets. So it's a combination of Venus, Pluto, and Mars influencing China's Jupiter, the ruler of its second house, of finance and the economy. Peng's chart contributes the stern disapproval and restriction of Saturn in the form of foreign governments and investors who are carefully observing the drama. And although the CCP is withdrawing China from full integration with the West, Peng Shuai's situation and how the CCP has handled it will now cause the West to pull away from China, something that the CCP may not have accounted for. How might this affect the 2022 Winter Olympics, which are being held in Beijing? They begin on February 4th, as the Sun is conjunct Saturn, 15 degrees Aquarius. February 1st is a new moon at 12 degrees Aquarius, which falls in China's first house. This new moon interacts with the Saturn-Uranus square, with Saturn in close orb of conjunction with the new moon. This triple conjunction of Sun, Moon, and Saturn oppose China's natal Mars, 14 degrees Leo. The mood is somber leading up to the games, to say the least, but the show does go on. The event may seem heavily staged, with stiff smiles and no dissent in China, but plenty of protests outside of China could be directed towards sponsors. as indicated by Mars sextile Jupiter at the start of the Games. No doubt these protests concern issues in which other female citizens of China have been silenced, coerced, and subjected to sexual abuse for years, but they aren't tennis stars. Mercury returns to direct motion on February 4th also, Beijing time, at 24 degrees Capricorn. So Mercury is in close orb of conjunction with Pluto for the 2 weeks surrounding the start of the Games. The situation surrounding Peng seems to have not been resolved to the satisfaction of other countries prior to the start of the Olympics. The CCP has a paranoid reaction whenever it gets even a whiff of dissent coming from any quarter, for it fears that accepting and considering criticism might open the door to demands from the Chinese people for more open dialogue between citizens and the party. Criticism is characterized as a threat to stability. But whether the CCP wants to admit it to the Chinese people or not, foreign governments and investors provide stability to China's economy, and thus enable the continuation of financial prosperity, which is the basis of the implicit social contract that the party has with the Chinese people. They agree to accept authoritarian rule in exchange for prosperity. There is a triple conjunction by longitude of Venus, Mars, and Pluto on March 3rd, 2022, at 27 degrees Capricorn, after Venus has returned to direct motion. This will, in some sense, close out this situation surrounding Peng Shuai, or at least it will close it off from foreign eyes. But as there is also a new moon at 12 degrees Pisces on the same day, opposing China's natal Saturn at 13 degrees Virgo, with all forming a T-square to the position of the December 4th, 2021 total solar eclipse, which was at 12 degrees Sagittarius, it also begins a new phase for China's financial system and economy. This may take the form of ring-fencing some parts of the economy from foreign influence, so to speak. With the transiting Mercury-Saturn conjunction 19 degrees Aquarius, opposing China's natal Pluto 17 degrees Leo, there is a standoff with the international community in which the CCP makes it clear that China is willing to further isolate parts of its economy from the global financial system of the West. As the Saturn-Pluto conjunction of January 2020 was conjunct China's natal Jupiter, the dynamics of a Saturn-Pluto conjunction are continuing to play out here in the Peng Shuai situation, not only because of that 2020 conjunction, but also because Yang, whom Peng accused, was also born under a Saturn-Pluto conjunction in Leo. Thus, this incident is a microcosm of the greater power struggle between China and the West, due to Jupiter's rulership of China's second house of its economy, and also of a power struggle within the CCP, due to Jupiter's rulership of the CCP. The current Saturn-Pluto cycle is intimately tied to China's direction over the next 33 years, which is the approximate length of that cycle. As both of these planets have destructive effects and present severe challenges that almost force transformation upon whatever they touch, this is a huge turning point for the Chinese Communist Party, and thus for China. Those who have been dominant are challenged, yet are able to push back ruthlessly. The party's internal conflicts and its paranoia over controlling the populace will be its two dominant concerns in this cycle. In this respect, the chart for July 1st, 1921, the day that the party traditionally celebrates as its founding date, is very revealing. For it has a Sun, Mars, Pluto conjunction at 8 degrees Cancer. Transiting Saturn made its direct station on October 11th at 7 degrees Aquarius, forming an inconjunct, which is a 150-degree angle, to this triple conjunction, indicating internal disagreement and an imbalance of power. The CCP is undergoing a very slow transformation, which began to surface as transiting Pluto opposed this triple conjunction when it passed over 8 degrees Capricorn in 2012, right at the time that Xi Jinping was promoted to the positions of General Secretary of the CCP, President of China, and Chairman of the Central Military Commission. Whenever the Jupiter-Chiron configuration is triggered, the CCP feels threatened. Against the backdrop of Saturn in Aquarius through early 2023, and Pluto moving into Aquarius at the same time, the CCP would prefer to resort to greater isolationism rather than engagement. This transformation is spreading outward from the internal dynamics of the party to all of society, as Pluto will pass over China's natal ascendant 1 degree 44 minutes Aquarius in 2024 through early 2026. This may not be very pretty. Just prior to Pluto entering Aquarius, when it is in the last degree of Capricorn, in early January 2024, it opposes the natal sun of the chart for the supposed true founding date of the party, July 23, 1921, indicating an intense power struggle within the party. Note the position of natal Mars and the natal nodes, which formed a grand cross with the 2020 Saturn-Pluto conjunction at 22 degrees 46 minutes Capricorn. Saturn and Pluto opposing one's natal Mars is akin to the challenge seen in old Western movies, in which one outlaw says to another, "This town ain't big enough for both of us." Mars is conjunct the Sun in this CCP chart. As the Sun represents the leader of the organization, the leader of the CCP will be facing a very direct challenge. China may be a very big country, but it's still not big enough to hold two ruthless egos. But the next act in this elaborate stage play may well be the culmination of a power struggle within the Chinese Communist Party. The world may get a very revealing glimpse of these power dynamics in July and August 2022. Thank you for joining me today. Please subscribe and get notified when I release new videos. Bye for now.